Are you listening?
This is the Rob Scott Show.
Damn.
I mean, really, like, if we're not trying to change the world, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Well, welcome back to the Rob Scott Show. Today,
Yeah.
we are going to dig into how to recode your mind. I hope you guys are excited.
Yeah. Why don't we start with why to recode your mind? Let's start there. And
Why should we recode our minds?
Yeah, we'll get to how in a second, and there'll be a way to even go further than this recording probably. But so why recode our mind? You know, we've talked in the past about the fact that there is thought and experience in our consciousness, right? If we get oversimplified, there's the thinking mind and the experiencing mind. And if you don't have access to the experiencing mind, you need to go, figure out a little bit of mindfulness or a little bit of moving your attention to experience to give yourself that first level of distinction so that you can start using your mind as a tool or your thinking as a tool instead of letting your thinking just run you, right? This rampant thinking. And one thing that I invite people to do sometimes is say, set a timer for 10 seconds and then see if you can just focus on your breath for 10 seconds, right? Literally, like you could try and do it right now. Hit pause and try for 10 seconds to just focus on your breath without having a thought. And when I first tried that, it was virtually impossible, right? Like I was freaked out that I'm not actually running my thinking. I was under the delusion that I was really running my thinking all the time. And when I actually tried to stop thinking and manage my own thought, it wouldn't happen. It would just pop up like a concern about tomorrow or the color red, or something ridiculous would just begin happening. And I was like, wait, why can't I even count to 10 while focusing on my breath? So in any case, if we don't have that level of mastery, that's the beginning of becoming self-aware. That's the beginning of waking up, is beginning to grow that capability. From there, right, we then want to use thought in a way that is really, really optimized. And if we can't use thought that's optimized, if we were to leave the meditation cushion, or if we were to go back into thinking, it's going to be really unhealthy potential thinking, right? And so unhealthy thinking comes from 1,000 places. We could probably do 3 other episodes on that alone.
Right.
But some of the places are, lack of self-worth, anxiety, depression, when we've been abused as children, or when we just had our heart broken in 8th grade. What happens is we start to take on these beliefs about ourselves, and we'll get into beliefs more deeply later, right? We've got some great
We
stuff.
are going to change your relationship with truth as you listen, bear with us. It's going to happen.
And relationship with your beliefs, not to take away any beliefs that matter to you, but to optimize your beliefs, because many of us are carrying limiting beliefs about ourselves and about the world, right? We're thinking to ourselves late at night, I'm not good enough, or I'm not attractive, or I'm not happy, or I'm not whatever. And so if that is the kind of thoughts that are being served up, you're going to not be having a quality experience. You're going to procrastinate. You're going to self-sabotage. You're going to hold yourself back. You're not going to live the most expressed life and the highest expression of you that you possibly can. And so
you may not even realize that that's what's happening.
Yeah, it's kind of, for most of us, it's blind to us. And so the job of waking up to this is to detach yourself from thinking a little bit, kind of get that experience perspective so that you can go, oh, that is when I'm thinking. And then I'm thinking, because if you're down at what we called before level 1 of consciousness or whatever, and you're just thinking and you're not even aware that you're thinking, you have no perspective to get there. Right? Like you can't, it's very hard to do this. One of the things I like to say, I'll probably say this a lot, is you can't do, no matter how good a neurosurgeon you are, or a brain surgeon you are, you can't do brain surgery on yourself. That's just, you don't have the perspective to get back there and do that work. You need to lay down, have a friend or somebody talented do that brain surgery on you. And so our psychology is often like that as well. We can't get at the things that are outside our consciousness, that are really in our shadow or in our unconscious. And so I want to back up for a second and talk about thought in this way. We have conscious thoughts. We have thoughts we know we're thinking, we're aware, we can see them. And then there's a lot of unconscious thinking and meaning making going on. There's a lot of these biases, and everything from biases that are opinions and all that to cognitive biases that are kind of ingrained in us as survival skills, et cetera. And these are not necessarily supporting us, right? If these are set to keep you safe, but they've been set in a way that really holds you back, it's going to tell you, don't do that challenge. Don't give that public talk. Don't start that business. Don't do these things because they're all dangerous and they're all scary.
Don't go to the gym. Don't
Yeah.
make a new friend. Don't talk to the girl across the bar. That's all.
Yeah. And it might be, if you do that, you'll fail, or it might be, what's the point? Or it might be, whatever those things are. And so, for those people out there that know this is going on for you, there's a way that you have to start dealing with this thinking, where you have to actually break up with the reality of it. Because what happens, and I guess we will start talking about beliefs a little bit here, is these occur to you as beliefs, and not a belief like a religion that you're choosing to believe, right? It's not something that you're going, I have all my options. I'm going to believe in this, right? I'm consciously believing this. I'm talking before that. It is the meaning that you're making that you take to be true. And so, to said another way, beliefs are an assuredness of meaning, right? Something happened in the world, and it may not have evidence. It may not be proven to me. It may not even be right. But in my own experience, my subjective experience, I am going to assume I know what that meant, right? My boss looked at me funny, and so I know that means that she doesn't like me, that I'm going to be fired.
And you may be listening, and you're catching yourself right now. You're trying to think, oh no, because we're challenging, right? What Rob just said is we're challenging the things that have been something that's so ingrained to you that you're like, oh no, I know my meaning. So listen to that, because what's happening, what could be happening for you right now is exactly what we're talking about. This strong
and it's
attachment.
Well, it's worse than that, because people will argue for their limits, right? Because to them, they're true. Somebody will come up to me and say, no, Rob, I am a loser. You don't understand. I lost the girl. I lost the car. I lost the job. I lose all the time. And the point is that if you want to change, if you're coming to a coach, or you're going to a therapist, or you're doing whatever to become better and different and grow, that has to become untrue at some point, right? We've all lost, right? We all have the experience of loss, but the error is what's called nominalization, where we take, we take a process or a verb and we slam it down into a way of being or a noun. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. So yes, I lost. That was something that happened in time. It's something judgeable in the moment or whatever. But as soon as I make myself a loser about that, now I'm carrying into every next moment being a loser. Right. And think about how I show up in a sales context if I think I'm a loser, if that's my conscious experience of me, versus what if I think I'm pretty awesome? Or what if I just think, I can't wait to make this connection with this person? There's so many other ways that are better to show up in consciousness with the use of my thinking about myself and about the situation, about the world, that can be optimized, that deeply change the reality. And we're not talking woo-woo. I'm not talking The Secret or the law of attraction, where I'm just going to imagine $1 million and hope that it shows up on my front door. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about changing how I show up, right? What do you say to yourself? I used to jog with my best friend, Nate, right? We used to run. And I used to annoy him. He hated me because I would be running uphill with the wind against us. We've been going a long time. And I would be talking about how psyched I was that it was tough. I'm like, bring that wind, like bring it on. Yeah. And then I would say things like, we're just starting right now. Like, this is your first step, dude. And I'm thinking every time, like, we're exhausted. I'm tired. And instead of thinking I'm so exhausted, I wish this would be over, I would go, what if this was the very first step I'm taking on my jog? Like, I'm beginning right now. And that shift lets me begin again in any moment, right? It gives me that new perspective. And Nate, God love him. He's my favorite person. I love this dude, but he would be like, shut up, like, just come on, like, stop it, and I'm like, take it on. And actually Nate's really, really good at positive things. Like, he's really good at applying these things in his life. But in those moments, it would be frustrating him. But the power, the difference between showing up in that way deeply changes your life, right? It deeply does it. So if your mind is set on negative, on overwhelm, on I'm not enough, this isn't enough, whatever, you literally have to recode it. And it's not just about the conscious affirmation, because if you only do that with your conscious thinking, if you only do that with the part of your mind that you can hear, if you're only just reading, I am enough, I am enough, I am enough, what that's not combating is the subconscious stuff that's been set up way back, that's set on autopilot and is...
Two levels of thought.
Yeah,
we've
two
got
levels
the
of thought.
conscious,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got the unconscious.
Yeah.
Both are happening to you right now.
Correct. They really are. And much of the processes that are happening unconsciously have you set to fail. So you've got to go in and you've got to actually unearth, like, what's really happening down there? What's the meaning making that's going on? And then you've got to go in and actually get that reset if you want to have a real shift in your cognition, right? In the use of your thought. And when you do that, you end up with a different level of thinking, right? That can be incredibly useful, can be incredibly, it's almost like, dialing up the IQ points, because you take these handicaps off, and now your full mind can kind of show up to whatever problem or situation or whatever you're dealing with. Your creativity gets amped up, etc. You start.
And would
to
you say
see
beliefs live in the unconscious thinking?
So you can definitely have conscious beliefs, right? You can be absolutely conscious of a belief. Your beliefs can be right. They can be there, but very often they're not right. Like we know, but then to finish that thought, your beliefs absolutely live in your unconscious too. The meaning making that's happening underneath, your beliefs about yourself, for most people, are not right on the conscious tip of their tongue. They're assuming them as truths. So, many people kind of have an idea of what kind of house they can live in. And if I start to talk about a huge mansion and I say, when are you going to buy your next mansion? It's not even natural for them. They're like, I don't live in mansions. What are you talking about? That's not me, right? And so one thing to think about is like, well, why is that not you? Why is living in a mansion totally normal for one person, and living in a mansion for you is like not even in the cards? Like, in fact, living in $1 million home is not in the cards. Like living in a $500,000 home for some people is not even in the cards. I'd be happy to buy a $250,000 home or something. Or for some people, it's like, I'll probably never get out of an apartment. All of those are beliefs about money and worth and what you deserve and what your living situation is. And so much of that gets set with your family of origin, right? What your parents said about money, whether they talked about wealthy people as being selfish or mean, or they're powerful and horrible people, whatever. That
your religious views, maybe you had religious influence on how you view money.
Or view all kinds of things.
I mean, tons of things are shaping your thoughts, both your conscious and your unconscious thoughts, all the time.
And so ultimately these form literal lenses on the world, which we can probably get into lenses another time, but it starts to really alter how you see the world, and it's happening unconsciously to you, right? It's happening automatically to you. You're coming with like a default bias that may not be serving you. And what happens is your ego is set up to deeply defend those biases, right? Your ego is used to it. Your subconscious, one of the things that I like to say, your subconscious is really not, your conscious mind is definitely motivated by pain and pleasure, right? All marketing is based on move away from this painful thing, move toward this really attractive thing, become more attractive, buy this lipstick, or, drink this beer and attract these women, or whatever the commercials are telling us, right? This thing tastes delicious, move toward that pleasure. Don't let them foreclose on your home, get this loan, move away from that pain. So it's all that pain and pleasure as the deep motivators. We call it carrot and stick, right? To motivate animals, literally. Do we smack them in the butt or we dangle a carrot? And it is truly a motivator. But what's funny and what's unknown to most people is that our unconscious mind is actually more motivated. It's not unmotivated by pleasure. It likes that, but it's way more motivated by moving away from pain, but staying in the familiar, right? It's deeply motivated by staying in the familiar, because the familiar is safe. I've done it before and it didn't kill me. And because the main mode of the subconscious brain is survival, it's not thriving. It's actually just to survive. That's what it's trying to do.
Right.
And so it's constantly not wanting to take risks. It's constantly trying to not think about things too hard. It wants to be lazy because it's expensive to think, right? It's calorically expensive to burn calories on thought. So it's looking for the shortcut. It's looking for the habit. It's looking for the thing it's already done. And this is, illustrated. The sad illustration that I often use is, is it so often that abused women in relationships don't just leave, right? Very often they will take the man back, or they'll go back to the man, and they get beat again and again and again. It's because it's familiar. It may be really uncomfortable and very much it's not pleasurable at all, but it's familiar. And that fear of the unknown, the fear of growth, the fear of change, even if their conscious mind is like, I want to go, like, of course, but there's something inside very often that doesn't let it go, because it's easier to stay, because maybe they grew up being abused. Maybe they grew up being, demeaned and talked down to. And so this is something that they're used to.
Or even the failed diet, right?
Totally.
Like, why do people fail? It's like, because where you were before you started, that worked. every day you woke
Yeah.
up and you did what you were going to do, and that worked. And so that's why recoding your mind, that's why we have something so exciting to talk about.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
recoding your mind.
totally. Well, let's get there in a second. Like, I want to take that to another place because it is the familiar over safe, right? Because I did conflate safety there too, because we are trying to survive. So we would assume it would be safety. So then why would people like continue to smoke if you know that's not safe? Like your mind must know that's not safe. You've got that information. Why do you keep smoking? It's because I smoked yesterday and I woke up today. So it literally worked. Like, it must have worked. Right. So I'm just going to keep doing it. And it gives me some pleasure. I'm physically addicted to whatever level. So it's going to overcome this conscious thing that's like, man, I hate this. I don't like how my fingers smell. I'm sick of this. I don't want to do it anymore. But yet we keep lighting up because it's really, really familiar. Now there's chemical addictions there too, and there's other things at play. But that overeating, that smoking, that procrastination, many people don't realize that if you were actually to take a journal, and if you do write in a journal, go check this out. Go look at last year, the year before, 3 years ago. You will be complaining about oddly similar things. Your goals, your big goals, that write the book goal, the get washboard abs goal, the $1 million a year in your business goal, those things will be oddly similar to what they are now, because you're actually living in this illusion of, I want to strive for this thing, but I'm actually playing this game of the familiar over and over and over again. So to deeply change, well, let's go back to another thing. If we want to change, but you don't change how you think, you don't change the processes of your meaning making, you don't change what you're thinking about at all, what could you possibly expect to be different, 3 years from now or 5 years? If you're thinking the same thoughts, down the road, what do you really think is going to be different in how you're behaving or how you're interpreting the world or whatever you think is okay to do? So if you can't change your thinking, you're probably not going to get a very different outcome in your life, right? In achievement and all these things and showing up differently. So you've got to get in there and recode it. And that's a longer process than what we can do in a podcast here, right? I really want to talk about this, and I want to help people find the way to do that. Affirmations do help, therapists do help, coaches do help. And not to, put like a blatant pitch in here, but one of the things that we do is we have a course called Recode Your Mind that is literally set up to go through the process. It's got 5 phases of literally uncovering in the beginning, what are your biggest limits that you can't even see? What are the things that are unconscious to you presently that are holding you back in ways that you don't even know about? Prior to that, it explains some of those lenses, some of the ways that your mind is working in a deep way that's really, really incredibly valuable. Then you decide what would be the better way to code my mind. And then toward the end of the course, you actually go through and recode your mind. There's a process called repatterning that I've created that actually goes in to literally give your subconscious mind a different, more pleasurable, better, safer path for it to choose. And what's amazing about that is you start to choose those, and it doesn't require willpower. There's no wrestling match anymore to do that different thing, right? So whether you do it with us or you do it somewhere else, you have to actually recode not only your conscious thinking, but your unconscious thinking to optimize thought in general. If you don't optimize your thought, you're probably going to get the same results day after day, year after year. And we've got a great option. I would love people to take us up on that. They can go to recodeyourmind.com and check that out.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't know, is there anything else to talk about with that?
Well, what I got excited about, I jumped the gun on earlier, is I think really what distinguishes, not the course specifically, but just in general, the way that we're talking right now in this episode about the ability to recode your mind, is it really is on that subconscious level, which makes a huge, huge difference. And we'll talk more as you stick with us about identity, and we'll dig a little bit deeper for you. But just understanding the distinguishment about your thoughts between the conscious level of thinking and the unconscious level of thinking, and where you can really impact change in your own thought. And to be able to do it on the subconscious level, again, as Rob said, no willpower, right? This is not forcing yourself to get up at 6 and hit the gym every day. This isn't going on a crazy restrictive diet. This is something that, as often you aren't aware of your subconscious thought, if you can get in there and change that aspect, you're not even going to have to work that hard to do it. It will just start happening.
So to be clear, it is doing those things, but it's not the act of will to do it. It's not the suffering to do them. It's actually changing it automatically so that those things become the way of being. The thing I often talk about is like becoming a runner, and the effort to become a runner, the act of will to do that for most people in the beginning, we need the willpower because it doesn't feel like us, right? It's not me yet. So I have to use will to do this thing that I'm really resisting doing, that my mind doesn't want to do. My conscious mind is like fighting this battle with the rest of me to go, put on your sneakers, go out and run, let's do this. And if people can apply their will to that long enough, eventually they may actually become runners where there's no resistance. But the thing that switches is it's not the willpower that does that. The willpower may get you there, and it is one way to change. But the way to really change is that all of a sudden the subconscious mind shifted over, and all of a sudden it's just like, oh, we're a runner now. Like there's no resistance to that because we've patterned in a new way of thinking about running and about ourselves, et cetera. And so this repatterning technique is deeply powerful to go make the changes that are most important to you. And before that, we have to even find out what those are, because for many people, their limits are completely unconscious to them, or at least partially unconscious.
Exactly.
And so sometimes we're trying to fix the wrong thing, right? We can maybe talk about this later, and I don't want to slam therapy because therapy is really good and important in some ways, even though there's a lot of therapists who maybe aren't talented at it. But you can actually be doing therapy for like 10 years on the wrong thing. Right? If you're not really sure what really the issue is, you can be showing an issue and be doing therapy on the wrong thing for a really, really, really long time. And so maybe that'll be like a cliffhanger. We can come back to that.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, that definitely, I know we might have talked before about your brain running on an autopilot. So we want to just, we're optimizing for that, and we've got a really sweet hack. So yeah, if you get a chance, you could check out the course if you're interested in that. Again, it's www.recodeyourmind.com.
That's correct. Recodeyourmind.com. You guys are awesome. Thank you for your time and attention. Deeply appreciate you, Sarah. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Yeah, great.
And,
all right. We'll talk to you guys again soon.
Deep bow. We'll talk to you soon.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.